Wait, what time is it? It's Monday. Ah, that must mean it is countdown time here on the channel. Hope you guys are having a fantastic Monday and having a great start to your week. If you're not, then hopefully this will kind of turn it around and give you a few minutes of fun and foolishness. This is kind of a counterpart to last week's list. Last week's spanned all of fiction, all of the plastic offerings from Masterpiece to G1 and everything in between, from every ounce of fiction, from comics to cartoons to video games, to give us the top 10 Optimus Primes. Well, this time around, after that list, a lot of people said, well, if you've done Optimus Prime, maybe it's time to do the top 10 Megatrons. Though Megatron is a little bit more of a squirrely character. Why? Because the name applies to some different characters. We're going to kind of sift through it as we do the top 10 Megatrons in the latest GotBot Counts Down. Hey all, welcome back to the channel. I'm your host, your most humble of hosts, Dennis Moulton, aka GotBot. As always, please like, comment, share, of course, subscribe, and while you're at it, light 'em up, baby. Hit that notification bell, please. It helps me out a ton and lets you know when content of all sorts goes up here on the channel. Check out Machinery of Man, The Everything Factor, all the groups that I'm either a mod or an admin for, as well as all my social media links. All of that down in the description below. If you are in a position to help the channel to grow, you can use the donate link. Check us out on Patreon. See what we offer to you through Teespring, or of course hit the join button right here on YouTube. Become a channel member. And this is the top 10 Megatrons. Now, my kind of general criteria for this was it could be all across fiction, video games, the plastic that we all know and love, from MP to Unicron Trilogy to anything in between. And it was intended to be the leader of the Decepticons in some iteration or form. As we know, though, the name applies to like a few different characters, so to speak. So as we go through, there's one in particular who made the list because of the votes, but because it's arguable that it's not really a Decepticon leader and it's more of an homage to the character, we do have an alternate when we get to that one. You'll see what I mean when we get there and explain it. But of course, before we get to the main list, what have we got to do? That's right, we got to do the honorable mentions first. And today we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 4? 5. We have, 5 honorable mentions. I thought for a second we only had 4. The first honorable mention is a plastic iteration. It is Tyrantron. If you don't know the Tyrantron offering, it is a tremendously well done Megatron. Look it up. So well done. Also, the Combiner Wars Leader class gets an honorable mention. The War for Cybertron FOC, Fall of Cybertron video game version gets an honorable mention. I like him. He was full of kind of smart quips going through. There was a lot of one-liners with him. Great character. Shattered Glass came in with an honorable mention. I got a funny feeling, as much as I like Shattered Glass, I got a funny feeling he got the votes he did because of the recent unveiling of Shattered Glass Megatron, so it's on the top of a lot of people's minds. Nevertheless, I'm glad he got an honorable mention at least. And the Last Night Leader class Megatron, he came in with an honorable mention. All of those, except for the Fall of Cybertron one, and I suppose Shattered Glass, because that was just like the general character. Most of them were actual plastic offerings. It varies as we get into the list. So without any further ado, let's kick things off with number 10 of First. Number 10 is one of my favorite Megatrons. As a matter of fact, the plastic representation of this guy was my top pick for 2020. It is the fearsome, it is the ferocious, and not well known Super Megatron. Or you could say the Ultra Megatron, or the, is it like Megatron Omega or Omega Megatron if you follow the Legends comics? It is that body type that gets reused a couple of times, all thanks really to Dark Nova. If you know the original G1, it was Dark Nova who found Galvatron's body in the ice and revived it as Super Megatron, and then that didn't work, and revived it as Ultra Megatron, and kind of that didn't work, and then he became Star Giant when the two kind of meshed together. In the Legends comics, that third form is like Megatron Omega or Omega Megatron. I can't remember the order it's in. But he is known as one of the strongest and most fiercest forms of Megatron. And for that reason, and because enough people kind of see him for the ferocity that he gives off, he was easily able to take enough votes to tie himself in at the number 10 slot. Coming in at number 9 is an unexpected entry on this list, and it is the character of Megatron from Cyberverse. Some people like the deluxe offering of that character in the Cyberverse line, but a lot of people spoke to the actual character in the cartoon because he was the one who mopped the floor with Starscream through all the fiction that we've always seen. Everyone has sort of waited for Megatron to finally mop the floor with Starscream, and this was the Megatron to do it, and enough people had a smile on their face from that he was able to take the number 9 slot. Number 8 is a version of Megatron that was well ahead of his time. Whether you're referring to how almost like imposing, cruel, fearsome, he was always seen as a major threat in the fiction that he was in, but his plastic offering was so far ahead of its time. Even today, it is a ridiculously good Megatron. I'm talking about Robots in Disguise, or Car Robots 2001. Whoa, man. I would venture to say that this is one of those that some people might say, oh, I don't know if it counts, because in Japan I believe he had a different name, and in North America he was given the moniker of Megatron, and later Galvatron. I think most of the world kind of accepts him as a Megatron. I know I certainly do, so I allowed him to be included here on the list. Between all of his modes, between the there's a word I'm looking for that's eluding me. It's not imposing, it's not fearsome, but like the threatening nature of his character. I honestly thought he might even score higher, but enough people remember that Megatron and saw him as a threatening Megatron that he was able to tie up the number 8 slot. Number 7 takes us to the Masterpiece line and MP36. Funny enough, poor old MP5 didn't get even one vote. But MP36 got enough to come in at number 7 because a lot of people said, hey, it is quintessentially Megatron. Now, I think that mold has a ton of issues between paint scraping and like barrel cracking off and stuff, but I'm not going to pretend that it doesn't absolutely capture and embody the character, especially the multiple head sculpts and the accessories that come with them. It is a quintessential Megatron cast in plastic. Do I wish it was a little more durable? Sure, but there's no denying that that's Megatron. When you see it, you know immediately who it is, and I would defy anyone to find a flaw in that look. Enough people thought the same way that he took the number 7 slot. Number 6 takes us to Megatron Attack and G2. The wild and garish G2 Megatron, man. Whoa. Whoa is all I can say. I have the Select G2 Megatron, whom I plan to use as Mega Storm. But the original G2 Megatron, I mean, I get it. They were trying to move away from the controversial nature of him turning into a pistol and have him turn into a tank instead. Why they made his color so outlandish, man, that was the 90s for you. That was the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s for you, you know? It was what it was. I don't really understand, though the Combat Hero version with the blackened face and the like tiger stripes and stuff on it, like, okay, cool, I guess. I don't remember that. I don't know where that homage comes from, but he did get a couple of votes. Most people voted for the one that we know that has all of the purple and green camo. How that works as camo, I don't know, but a couple of people did. It would only be fair for me to say a couple of people that voted for G2 voted specifically for that Combat Hero thing. A couple of people voted for the G2 one where he has the blue and the purple on him. Maybe that's the Combat Hero. I don't know. There's a couple of different color schemes for G2. Most went with the camo we know, but a couple did specifically identify the other ones. I did lump them all together as G2, and you know what? Enough people remember G2 fondly that he was able to take the number 6 slot. And here we are once again at the most coveted of spots, that being the halfway mark. And at the halfway mark, we have a little bit of controversy this time, because officially the votes would say that at the halfway mark we have Beast Wars Megatron. Yes. Now, that being said, as much as I love that, the argument could be made, well, that's not really Megatron. As a matter of fact, he didn't even lead all the Predacons. He was just a Predacon outlaw who was inspired by the original Megatron and took on his name and moniker in homage and respect to him. I get that, and I tend to agree, because if I include him, it kind of isn't fair, because when we looked at the Optimus Primes, I did not include Optimus Primal, who is a different character. So we do have an alternate here. Our alternate, with the same number of votes, ironically, is, not the same number of votes, one less vote actually, is IDW Megatron. And IDW Megatron got the votes he did because of the massive story arcs and character development that he undertook. While I'm not a fan of those comics, I can't deny it. You know, let's just, for example, like some people specifically point out the way he was in 2005. Some people specifically point out his stealth bomber body and when he combated against D-Void. Some people pointed out his new iteration. Some people pointed out the minor version of him. A lot of people voted for Autobot Megatron, saying, look, he was someone who realized that he had gone astray, the error of his ways, and that his vision had totally strayed from what it originally was, and he sought to make amends, and done so by not only kind of switching sides, so to speak, but starting from the very bottom of the barrel as someone not trusted, not liked, not believed, and the onus was going to be on Megatron to prove his worth, to prove who and what he was, and escape his own demons of the past. That is pretty deep. He was someone who led a revolution and led forces and gave up that power, gave up that vision when he realized that he needed another path, and started right from the very bottom. If Megatron can do it, anybody can change. And enough people remember him fondly as well, that whether you want to slot in at the halfway mark Beast Wars Megatron or IDW Megatron, honestly, both of them deserve a slot on the countdown. Number 4 takes us to a plastic representation with Siege Megatron. Interestingly, nobody voted for the Earthrise one, but Siege Megatron. And it was pretty much split down the middle between the 35th anniversary coloration and the Netflix, the first package Netflix coloration, the one that came out in, I think, Wave 1, along with, I think, Hotlink was the Wave mate, if I'm not mistaken. I don't have either of those. Honestly, I just had the regular release and I'd done the custom work on that, and that's the one for me. But if somebody said Siege, I lumped them all together. But there were a couple of different versions. I mean, the mold's been used a bunch of times. There were a couple of different colorations that spoke to different people. Nevertheless, I do think that in the modern era, that is about as quintessential of a mainline Megatron as you could want, and the real winning point with it, the most important winning point with it, I think, is that they absolutely nailed the head sculpt. Enough people felt the same way that Siege Megatron was able to take enough votes to come in at the number 4 slot, and that only leaves us with the top 3. Coming in at number 3 is, I'm not gonna lie, I think the scariest version of Megatron. I really do. I think it was the most unique take on Megatron, while still being the leader of the Decepticons and recognizable. I think it is one of the most threatening, and every time I even heard him speak, I got chills up my spine. I'm talking, of course, about animated Megatron, man. Oh, man. Animated Megatron, whatever mode you want to give him, whether it was the Cybertronian mode, whether it was the helicopter mode, whether he was just a head, you could tell that when he is unleashed, bad things will happen. He will be a big threat. They built him up that way. The voice acting was unique but impeccable for it. Honestly, he is the Megatron of a generation. Those who grew up with animated, he is their Megatron, and I totally get it. I love him, and his fusion cannon was gigantic to boot. You knew that that was a threatening weapon that was going to be formidable in battle. Love the alt mode, love the robot, love the voice, love his cannon. Love animated Megatron. So did enough people that he took the number 3 slot. Number 2 is a fan favorite, that being, and this one goes to fiction, Transformers Prime Megatron. The great Frank Welker voiced this one as well, and he too, much like animated, was a huge threat. You could tell that he ruled the Decepticons with an iron-clad fist, and you could tell that he had no time for nonsense, though arguably there are times he should have, for example, taken out Starscream, and he didn't. But when you look back to not wanting to put up with foolishness, what did he do with Dreadwing, for example? When he was done, he was done. It's as simple as that. But yet, even he too, much like with the IDW lad, had a story arc, thanks to Predacons Rising, where he saw the error of his ways and really changed who he was. I wouldn't call it a full redemption. As a matter of fact, if you even consider Robots in Disguise 2015 as a follow-up, we're kind of left at loose ends a little bit with the character of Megatron. The last we knew, he flew off, never to be heard from again? I don't know, but I do know that he certainly realized the error of his ways. So he went from not only having an iron fist over his forces, but to totally disbanding the Decepticons. That is quite a character development. That is quite a character change. And enough people remember Transformers Prime Megatron for various reasons, whether it's the character change or his formidable nature, that he was able to take the number 2 slot. And here we are at number 1. And you know what? Number 2 and number 1 were really close in the votes. Honestly, for a while, the Transformers Prime version of Megatron was winning. He was gonna take it. Honestly, the animated was winning. He was going to take it. And it wasn't until the very end that number 1 had enough of a push to just barely eke out a win at the top. Who is number 1? Number 1 is, of course, going to take us right back to G1. And the G1 version of Megatron, a lot of people said, look, it's not the plastic and die cast, because that wasn't great. I don't know, I've actually never held that. It was, of course, the fiction. He was built to be military hardware and decided to use that might, because of his programming, to lead the Decepticons to conquest. There was no, they were done wrong. There was no retribution. He was just about conquest and power. Again, why he didn't take out Starscream, I don't know, but he did belittle him a lot. But for him, he was just a quintessential bad guy. His only motivation was a thirst and a lust for power. And even when he was kind of face-to-face, beat to smithereens, face-to-face with, arguably, the Transformers version of the devil himself, that being Unicron, he was still defiant the whole way through. How could you not love him? Plus, he became Galvatron. And a lot of people said, you know what? Galvatron was as crazy and ferocious, if not more so, than Megatron ever was. If anything, Megatron didn't see the error of his ways. He just became more kind of Energon thirsty, more Energon hungry, and more power hungry. And of course, he was the Megatron that was the template for everybody that followed. It was probably a foregone conclusion that he took number 1, but I think it absolutely makes sense. And there you have it. We've gone from 10 down to 1 one more time, once again, for the Megatrons. The voting was actually really close here, a lot more closer than it was for the Optimus Primes. Honestly, anybody from about the top 5 up at one point or another could have taken the number 1 slot. It could have been the IDW lad or the Beast Wars version. It could have been animated. It could have been Siege. Yeah, Siege. It could have been G1. They were all really close. This was a fun race. Let me know who your favorite Megatron was. We had other ones who did get votes. Magmatron got some votes. The Titans Return lad got some votes. The Superlink version got some votes. The Cybertron version got a vote. Who else? did we have here? Some of the different Studio Series ones each got a couple of votes, like 54, 31, 13. What else do we have here? The Earthrise got 1 vote. I thought he got no votes. My mistake. The Prime Wars trilogy, he got a few votes, and the Netflix trilogy got 1 vote. Anyway, like I said, let me know which Megatron is your Megatron du jour. I appreciate you coming by, giving me some of your extremely valuable time. I do know how important it is to you. If you are in a position to help the channel to grow, you can use the donate link. Check us out on Patreon. See what we offer to you through Teespring. Or, of course, you can hit the join button right here on YouTube. Become a channel member. While you're at it, hit the subscribe button. Stick around, have some fun with us. And don't forget that somehow, someway, each and every single day, you do make a difference. And I look forward, baby, to the next time that you and I get together to have another visit, either in the live streams on Thursday nights at the stop motion premieres, or the old-fashioned way right here inside the videos.